Haven't done a webinar for a while, so it's I had to just refresh myself on what the hell I was actually doing. Used to doing podcasts, and if you can see some sweat coming from my brow, that's because I've just had some Chinese and it was very hot, but very nice. Thanks for joining. There's a massive amount of in here. I think we got up to, oh, look at that. Yeah, plenty joining. So thank you all for joining. And let's get started, will we? Happy New Year to you all, if I haven't spoken to you before tonight in January. Hope you had a restful period with family and friends and you're recharged for 2020. So I want to make it as interactive as possible. So if you have got any questions, well, first of all, anything that you want to cover tonight, I'll probably go for about 45, 50 minutes. I don't want to bore you too long tonight. We'll go for about 45, 50 minutes, but if you've got something that you want to cover off specifically, we'll answer those questions throughout the session. From the topics that I sent through, if there's anything that appeals to you more than the others, just please let me know in the question and answer section, and I'll put that as a priority as much as I can, given that there's a few of you on here tonight. So I wanted to firstly start off with, I suppose, ways that you can learn from a Solvair perspective in 2020. It's a combination of learn, it's a combination of motivation, it's a combination of taking action and basically doing whatever you need to do to get the results you desire in 2020. And that's not just going and buying property. And I do stress that a lot to people is, yeah, we come into the system to maybe buy a property because we've got some fears or obstacles or roadblocks there. But as you know with my coaching, especially those who have been around a while, we do dig deeper into other parts of our life, which I think is imperative to having that all-rounded approach to our life and also our wealth creation. So if you don't like that part of the coaching, bad luck, because I think it's really important. And often I talk to people that outside of the Solvair world and they're trying to create this quick fix through property and creating miracles in the next 2 or 3 years. And I just don't see that that's a sustainable outcome, and it doesn't relieve any stress in your life and it doesn't make you happier. So we're really in it for the long-term outcome in all aspects of our life. So I just wanted to quickly recap on ways that we can learn and motivate in 2020. So I'm going to share the screen. Let's share. So, I apologize if you're all aware of this, but I just wanted to go through it. So when we're in our downtime, when we're not meeting and chatting around strategies or anything else, here's some areas that we can go to. So first of all is the Solvair website, which is continually being updated with new videos in our library, and also ebooks and different bits and pieces. So a good way to go and clue yourself up on those, but also revisit some, especially if it's pertinent to what you're doing at the moment in your daily life. One of the others is if you're on Facebook, our Solvair Connect Facebook page. I had to have a bit of a chuckle today when I went on here. I noticed as our suggested members, Amy Pidgeon was one of them. I'm not sure why she's not a friend in our group just now, but I'll be having words to her when I get home. So that's our Solvair Connect, and it's an interactive group that's not just obviously Solvair clients, much wider than that. People can come in and post and find assistance as they need to. The other one, which was launched late last year, as you all know, is our Solvair Online Academy. So you guys have free access to that. If you've already done it, great. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'd love some feedback, good, bad, or otherwise. If you haven't done it, please go in and do it. I think it's really great to be able to have a foundation, but also rehash a lot of things that you may already know as well. So it's a bit of a motivational thing as well. If your code has expired, just send an email to admin@solvairwealth.com.au, and they will issue you a new code that's relevant to get you in there, so you don't have to pay any money. So that's cool. The next one is our property coaching book. Right now, when you first joined, you would have had a link to this. It's a downloadable book. And for the ones that like the hard copy, that's all the teachers out there I think I'm talking to there, and I'm the same. Obviously, you can print it out and highlight it and circle and do what you need to. But again, it's something that you continually access, read through, reread. And again, there's different parts of it which will be pertinent to you at different times through your journey. So it may be a while since you've read it, might be time to go back and have a look at some different things there. So that's the sites that you can access. So I'm just going to change the share. Website, I've said. Client emails, we try to keep those as consistent as possible to the group in general. The webinars, look, as I said, it's the first one I've done in a while. So if you feel that they are valuable, after tonight you might say, I'd never want to do one again with John. That's cool, I get that. But if you do, I'm happy to roll them out once a month or something like that. So give me a thumbs up or a wave if you think that's a good idea, or type in some comments there. Instagram and Facebook, Instagram's TV and Facebook in general. We do a lot of videos and posts, motivational posts, different blurbs, different ebooks, etc. So yeah, get a hold of that. If you're not on socials, that's cool. You don't have to join just for the sake of that. There's other avenues which I've just spoken about. The last one is obviously our scheduled meetings. So you can email and phone as you need to, but actually booking in meetings and thrashing it out as to what we need to do next is critical. So if it's a while since you've booked a meeting, then I encourage to jump on the email or the phone and book one in the coming weeks. I'd probably say there's about a week to 2 week lead in for booking meetings in advance. So just keep that in mind as well. But yeah, if there's any issues with any of the back end, admin at solvairwealth.com.au is it, or just come to me direct. All right, it's kind of weird sort of talking into a screen and no one's talking back, and yeah, so feel free to interact with me. Even though I won't be able to hear you, you can jot some stuff down if you want. So what do we want to talk about? You tell me, otherwise I'll just continue to ramble on about what I think I want to talk about. Thank you, Kyla. Good to see someone's interacting. Beautiful. So if you haven't got any questions or topics that you want to cover specifically, and you just want to generally talk about 2020, I want to talk about, and look, I haven't got any flashy PowerPoint slides or flashy models. It's just me in a t-shirt with Chinese in my teeth. But let's look at how we can maximize 2020. So we're all probably back at work, and maybe work has issued us with some key targets or KPIs within it. If you're a business owner, then hopefully you've done the same thing as a business owner to hit some targets. So, but what's often neglected is the actual back end of our life and hitting key targets and outcomes in our life. Now, I don't always like to say, let's go and hit some goals or set some goals, because sometimes people don't have a real good history with goal setting. So let's just call it target setting for 2020, shall we? I think there's a couple of things that I want to talk about here that I think are ultra important, and I'm not anything special, but one thing I think that I do really well is I maximize my time well, and I think there's maximizing your time and setting habits are critical. If we're not setting good habits and time chunking, it's very hard to maximize our time, no matter how motivated and efficient we think we are. I think we do need to segment different parts of our day and our week to get the best out of it. So we all know there's 168 hours in the week. Now, everyone has the same amount. So what are we doing with those 168? That's a critical part. Now, it doesn't mean all work and then just sleep and repeat, because that's not a lifestyle that we want to live. Even though we think it might be cool to work hard, I don't think it's sustainable. So first thing I would do is I've done a video on Circle of Life and the 168 hours and how we put values on our life. So listing the 3 values, and I'll give you an example of my own personal situation, I suppose, to pre-frame it all. So if I draw a circle and I divide it into 3 pieces, 3 pieces of cake, I'm saying, what are my 3 most important areas of my life? Number 1 is definitely my family. Number 2 is my health. And number 3 is my business, right? So they're the 3 most important areas that I value most in my life, right? If I had a 4th, it'd probably be friends. So I rank them out of 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. So where are we sitting on a ranking of 1 to 10 at any one time in each of those 3 areas? Now, you might have 3 different areas for you, but I think whatever they are, you need to own them and appreciate that they're the most important things in your life, right? Now, some might say, well, money is, or wealth creation or something like that. Well, I see work or business as that whole gamut of wealth creation. So I see a lot of people, and present company excluded, that work a tremendous amount of hours and rarely see their family, but come back and say, well, I'm doing it for the family. I call BS on that, because what that's actually doing is, when we've got 168 hours in the week, we don't get that back, right? We can get money back, but we can't get time back. So I think we need that balance that says, well, yeah, I can work hard, I can work smart, but also going to chunk out some time to have with my family or my loved ones, right? The same goes with my health and my fitness. So and this isn't big noting or anything, but I schedule at the moment, because I'm training for Ironman, there's about 15 hours of training or health and fitness that I schedule each week, right? Now, I try to, as best I can, work those 15 hours when the kids and Amy are asleep, right? So they're usually hours of 4 till 7 or 4 till 6 most mornings, right? So if I can get the chunk of that done, then that doesn't impact the family in any way, shape or form. And then I've got plenty of more hours to dedicate to the family side of things before I go off and work. So for you, what can you do to draw your circle and rank them out of 10? If work's at a 9 and health is at a 2, we've got to change that in 2020. We can't go any longer doing that, because A, will burn out, B, will mentally fatigue, and C, our family won't enjoy the company when they get it because you're too exhausted. So have that balance of, can we get a 10 in every area? I don't think so, right? But we're always working towards a reasonably even balance. Now, there'll be days and weeks where you might be higher in one area because you've got certain things on, but over the course of the week or the month, it'll balance itself out, okay? So that will reduce its stress, and it'll also help with your health and wellness, right? So I can guarantee you in my life personally that I am at my most efficient and I have the most energy when I'm training and eating well, right? When I'm laying around like a couch potato and eating like crap, then I'm not the best person to be around, right? So the best version of you, you need to understand what that looks like in 2020 and head towards that. So let's move on. Has anyone got any questions in relation to that? Okay, Rebecca said, would you not include, and by the way, all the way from Singapore, I must add, so thanks for joining us overseas, Rebecca. Would you not include finance as one of these areas here since it affects stress so much, an area where you need to have good balance? Absolutely you would. As I mentioned, I put finances in under the work category, right, or wealth creation in general, which you could actually create another part to the circle if you wanted and include it just cash flow and finances. But I just include it all in as work/business/finance, if that makes sense. So yes, it is massively important. It doesn't define us, but I can tell you that if we're comfortable financially, that yes, it reduces some stress, but it's got to be in proportion as well. So yeah, hopefully that answers that for you, Rebecca. But yeah, it needs to be a focus, but not a sole focus. So speaking of, chatting now about cash flow management, and I won't cover off on too much of this, especially for those who have been around a little bit. You're saying, well, John, I've heard all this crap before, but I've read a book probably 4 times because I take something different from it each time. So yeah, just bear with me there. But understanding that cash flow management, I think there's 3 key areas. Number 1 is, and this is in order, you need to pay yourself first, right? So if you're sitting here saying, well, in 2020, I want to save more money or create more wealth through the savings that I've got in my life, I need to pay my future self first, right? So the old method of getting to the end of the month and seeing what's left over, unfortunately doesn't work anymore. Well, it actually never worked, but it's most people's common way. You must pay yourself first. So the only way you can do that is work out how much it costs you to exist on a monthly basis, and then over the course of the year, work out how much that is, and then you can set a goal for what you then can effectively put away for your future self, right? Now, future self, I mean, not holidays, not a new dress, not a new car. It's more about future self in the wealth creation space. So a new deposit for an investment property. It might be money into shares. It might be money into kids' accounts or something like that, that's actually going to enhance the future wealth of your family, okay? So pay your future self first is the first way to get an effective plan outcome. The second part of our life that's of importance is our non-discretional income. So our non-discretional spending. So how much does it cost us to exist per month that is non-discretional, right? So things like our mortgage or our rent, our insurances, our car registration, things that you need to pay regardless of your emotional state, right? So jotting all those down, and we've got obviously an income and expenses spreadsheet that you all should have that you can play around with to list non-discretional versus discretional. So those things that we have to have in our life to exist, again, which doesn't mean buying a new pair of shoes every second week. That's not non-discretional. That is very much discretional, right? So it's at our discretion that we spend it, right? So understanding what the discretional spending amount you want to have or need to have in order to save for your future self, okay? So as a round figure, if I'm getting in, say $5,000 per month, and it costs me $3,000 to exist in the non-discretional space, I've now got $2,000 left over. I can say, well, I'm going to commit $500 a month as a round figure to my discretional spending. So that includes going out and a new pair of shoes or whatever it may be. And the rest, that's, what's that, $1,500, is put towards paying my future self. So I know that over 12 months, I'm going to save 24 grand a year, 2 grand a month, right? What did I say? 1,500 a month, sorry. So 18 grand a year. Okay, so that's how I best calculate it in a very abbreviated format. Okay. Any questions around that? Because there's only 3 ways or 2 ways essentially that we can increase our savings. One is increase our income. Number 2 is decrease our spending. And number 3 is a combination of both. Right now, ideally, increasing our income is in the form of a pay rise. So through 2020, can I actually go and get myself a pay rise? Can I go and ask my boss, look, I've been working here a while, I work hard, all those sort of things. Can I get myself a pay rise, right? The second one is to work extra hours, which again, from a balance point of view, is not always the ideal outcome, although it can be a short-term thing to meet a goal. And then the third one is going and actually applying for a higher paying role, right? Now that might be leaving a company. It might be staying within the company, but going upstairs or whatever that means there. So decreasing spending is a way that you can have an effective inroad to saving for future self. Absolutely. So when I meet with people in general, I would rather them try and cut a bit of fat from the spending than actually go and work 10 more hours a week, right? The ideal would be go and get yourself a pay rise, work the same amount of hours per week and cut some fat from your spending, okay? That's the combination that I'd ideally like to see, okay? Because it's about balance now, but also balance for 30 years' time, depending on your age, right? So that's cash flow management. I'm not going to go too much deeper into that, but if it's something that you need to readdress, you had it in motion, but then it fell off the rails, or you've never really had it in motion, then okay, that's something that we need to discuss one-on-one to go a bit deeper. All righty. So that's cash flow management. And you know, I didn't use the word budget, right? I don't think a budget is in there. In the vocab. It's a rough word, I think, in my mind. Let's look at paying down our home loan. So when we're looking at, and obviously this is for someone who has a home that they live in with a mortgage, which I consider bad debt because we can't claim the running costs of that. We can't claim the interest. We don't get any depreciation benefits. So in my eyes, it's bad debt versus the good debt of investment properties where you can claim back all the running costs and the depreciation, etc. Okay. So if we've got bad debt in our life, as in a mortgage, and I'm presuming that we've all got no credit card and no credit card debt, no personal debt, no major bad debts in our life other than that, because we've been conditioned well and we've got good structures in our life. How do we pay our home loan down as effective as we can? So if we've got a savings plan of paying our future self first, that amount can go straight into that offset onto our mortgage, right? Doesn't necessarily have to pay down the mortgage. It just can simply sit in the offset because it can then offset that interest, right? But we've got it for a rainy day to go and use for more property or shares or whatever it may be, okay? So that's the first part, is know we've got a savings plan, number one. If we're trying to pay down our mortgage when we don't know what we're spending, no hope, I'm sorry. We need to get that part first. And it's like pulling teeth, and it's not the most exciting thing to be doing on a Sunday afternoon, but suck it up. It's going to repay you handsomely over the next 30 years. I give the example of saving $500 a month, right? So if I'm saving $500 a month, that is $6,000 a year. Over 10 years, that's 60 grand, okay? If you look back at the last 10 years, have you saved 60 grand? Right, now some of you that are here that are quite young, I'm looking at a few of you, 10 years ago you were in nappies, but or close to high school maybe. So you might not be able to use this comparison, but for those of us a bit older, did we save 60 grand over that 10-year period? Right, or did we put 60 grand into future wealth assets? Right, if the answer to that's yes, great. Let's go and build that once more. If we didn't, our system wasn't working for us, right? Now, our life changes. We have different situations as we go, and we need to adjust to that, and I get that, but having a structured plan is critical. So offset account is number one. You need to have an offset, and you need to use it wisely. So if you have a redraw facility, there is every chance that it's actually not offsetting your interest. So do check with your lender or broker or whoever you use to set the loan up to make sure that if it's a redraw, that it's actually offsetting the interest on your mortgage, right? I've seen many cases where that was not the case, even though they thought they were offsetting interest. Might be time to do an interest rate check. I posted in our Solvair Connect, I think it was a few weeks ago, that I've got good mail that there's going to be 2 rate reductions this year by the RBA. So as always, will the banks pass them on? Who knows? But at the moment, we are into sub 3% principal and interest territory, which is absolutely amazing. From a cost point of view to run a property, it's a great time to maximize paying down our debts, right? So if we're paying on our own home, I think if we're paying more than 3.2, 3.3, we need to definitely check that. Investment property, yes, might be higher than that, but yeah, for principal place, we may need to do an interest rate check. So get back in touch with your mortgage broker to have a look around. And the paperwork of changing to another bank or lender, I see as a cost of doing business of my time, because I know how beneficial it will be over the term. If that means changing lenders every 2 years, then so be it. I've got no loyalty to any particular lender when it comes to getting the best loan structure for myself. Yeah, so they're the 2 big ones: having the offset account, having the interest rate check, and doing that every 12 months. Okay, so I don't think, especially in today's market, we can't leave it any longer, because the bank will take advantage of that. So we've got to keep them on their toes. The first thing I would do is actually go back and ask the bank, what can you do for me? All right, much easier to keep and stay with them than to change over. So ask the question of them first. The next few, and I've done a video on this, and I've done a podcast through My Millennial Money for those who listen to it, about ways that we can pay down our home loan. So for those who haven't, I didn't mention the podcast before, but My Millennial Property is a new podcast that we've launched in the last, I suppose, 6 months. And one of the topics is paying down your home loan. So take a listen to that if you're a podcast fan. I didn't know what a podcast was 2 years ago, and now I find myself doing 3 or 4 of them a week. But in any case, good fun. But in there, I talk about a few little ones that are easy little wins. So if we've got money in our savings account, if it's substantial money, we need to get it back over to our offset. Selling things that we don't need, being ruthless in 2020 is one thing that I'm definitely also going to focus on. What I mean by ruthless is selling stuff that I don't need, stuff that I've maybe bought in the past that I thought I was going to use, but I didn't, and getting rid of that. And then that might extend through to the family as well. So yeah, every little bit counts in there. The kids, I get a lot of questions around what do I do with my kids' funds right now. and this isn't a broadcast for CBA, but CBA, and I wish all the lenders did it, have multiple offsets or unlimited offsets. So I've got a client, not on here tonight, but has 7 offset accounts. So 3 kids make up 1 offset each. And then there's one for the money to come in and then and out, sorry. And there's another one for holidays, and there's another one for future self. I think there's one more somewhere there as well. So every little dollar in their life is actually offsetting the mortgage on their own home. And over time, you might not think it makes much of a difference in this month or next month or in the next 12 months, but over the next 10 years, it can make a massive difference, right? There's a tool on our website where you can actually click and put in extra repayments or have an offset amount contributing to that, and you can see how much reduce off your mortgage in years, which is pretty exciting to do that exercise. So that's paying down our home loan. The strategic way, well, I suppose a little bit of out of the box thinking, which requires a bit of life admin to get it done, is if you've got investment properties, the income from that can actually go and sit in your mortgage or in your offset account as well, right? So as I said, it's a bit of a shimmy shuffle to make sure that the bills are getting paid for the investment properties. But if you've got multiple investment properties, there might be $1,600, $2,000, $3,000 a week coming into your life, right? Can that sit in the offset for a portion, right? Can you have direct debit set up that way? Again, interest is calculated daily, so every little bit counts there. Now, if you've only got the one property and the yield's not anything fantastic, then you might be better off just not worrying about the stress of doing it. But yeah, if you've got multiple properties, it's definitely something to think about. Any other questions or comments around paying down our home loan? I asked you guys to be interactive. I'm needing more. Come on, give me something. All right, just looking at questions here. Oh, sorry, Kyla. I did get your question. Yeah, if offset is the amount of the loan, would you still bother with an interest rate reduction? That's a very good question, and that's a fortunate position to be in. If your offset, if you have enough money in there to meet the amount that's actually the loan on your principal place of residence, would you bother getting an interest rate reduction? The answer to that is probably not. However, if at some stage you're going to take that money out and use it to buy further assets with, then you would definitely go and look at reducing the interest rate. So yeah, it's a case by case, that one, but you just need to assess how quickly you're going to use that money. If you're closer to retirement, you probably want to stay cash heavy. So you'd keep it in the offset and let it do its thing. Now, you can get the title back from the banks if you pay it all out, but my suggestion in most cases is to keep that in your possession or keep the offset running, keep the loan running, and just manage that. Yeah, but great problem to have. Absolutely, that's the end goal. So minimise bad debt, create wealth assets, right? That and most of you have probably heard this, but I'll hash on it. So I think there's key areas of your life that you need to focus on. Improve your cash flow, reduce your tax, pay down any bad debt, which includes your mortgage, and increase your assets, right? Those 4 things are absolutely key, and you need to be doing those at every one time, right? So many people I run into focus on the first three, right? But they get one of those wrong, and that's improving your cash flow because they spend everything they earn. So all they're really doing is paying down their mortgage. And in some cases, they're not even doing that to be able to get any tax benefits through investing, which means obviously they can't invest at all, right? So they're actually only paying down their mortgage in some case. So it's a very slippery slope to work on. And at the end, when it's all said and done, if, you might have enjoyed your lifestyle spending everything you earned, but towards your later years, you may run into some roadblocks with cash flow. So for those 20 to 30s listening, and there are a few of you there, I still believe that's the maximum time and age to take advantage of your life in terms of cash flow. It's very easy to go out and party and get the next toy because our cash flow is strong. But in my mind, it's the best time to set yourself up. If you can get yourself 3 or 4 different assets in that period, and then the kids and the family and all that and the schooling begins, then you know that worst case, you've still got those assets. So I'm sure there's a lot of mums and dads would be thinking, yep, absolutely, we should have done that. And I run into them every day. So let's talk about, we're on the home stretch. So let's talk about finding our own property. And throughout the different webinars that we will do, we will go deeper into one topic, but I just wanted to cover off a few topics today for 2020 kickoff, just to look at hitting the ground running with a few different areas of what we need to look at. So number one, to rehash, we need to go and absorb ourselves with as much information, motivation and education and action as we can. So I spoke about all those different forums at the start. The second one is rehash the cash flow management and have that plan in place and stick to it and see that through. The third one is our habit setting and our time management and getting that in order so that it improves your lifestyle to the point where everywhere you look, it's performing reasonably well. It might be a 7 or an 8 out of 10. I don't think, as I said, you can get all 10s. You might have one fantastic day where there's all 10s and you're feeling great. But overall, if we can average some 7s and some 8s as opposed to having a 10 here and a 2 over here, we've got that contentment that we need so that our focus value areas in our life are feeling good. Nathan, current home repayments $400 per week, and we pay $600 per week and have our offsets accounts as well. Do we put more into repayments to pay down quicker? Good question, Nathan. So my general feel on that is I give the banks as much as they tell me to give them, right? So if they're telling me based on their interest rates and the fact that I need to pay some principal, I give them $400. If they say it's $400 per week, I'll give them $400. I'll put the remaining amount, which Nathan, you're saying is the extra $200, into the offset account to be able to use for future wealth creation or future self, not a new car, not new clothes, not a trip to Paris, because that's all in our cash flow management plan that we've done prior. So the 200 extra a week sits in the offset, right? So if that's happening, it's still doing the same thing as if it was being paid down, right? It doesn't actually pay it down any quicker because the same amount of interest is being calculated. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. But again, understanding that having money in the offset is the same as paying it down. The difference is up here where in your own mind, you want to see the debt level decrease. Okay. And I get that. And I hear that every day. I want to see that debt going down, right? But in actual fact, it doesn't make a difference to your repayments and it doesn't pay it down any quicker, the trap that people fall into, which you guys will avoid because you've got your ducks in a row, is that the 200 per week sitting in the offset is then taken out and you've got your dirty mitts on it and you've gone and done the wrong thing with it. Okay, that's a totally different conversation. That's not the problem of the offset. It's the problem of not having the cash flow management plan in place in the first place. Yep. Happy with that, Nath? Just let me know if you still need some clarity around that. But that calculator on the website might help you with that. So finding a property is the final one that we'll focus on. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes to chat on that. And obviously we know that it's a long topic that can be talked about for days. So going back to basics, and I encourage you to grab your Solvair coaching booklet out and have a reread of property strategies and finding your own property, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously there's multiple ways to find property, right? But I think you've got to know your long-term plan. You've got to know what it is that you want over the next 15, 20 years, and then work our way back to that next or that first play, right? So what is our overall strategy for our long term, but overall, what is our strategy right now? Okay, because that's going to be different. So we don't want to be just doing what the next person's doing. We want to do what's going to be right for us, right? Now, ideally, 3 ways that you can create growth or equity in your portfolio. One is obtaining a discount. Number 2 is adding value to something. And number 3 is capital growth. Now, capital growth consistently is what most people look for, but it's actually the hardest thing to do, right? It's the hardest thing to predict, okay? Now, when I look at different areas around the country to invest, there's obviously a whole type of things that we look for, and I think it looks as though, based on the feedback, that may be the next topic for the webinar, is to go deeper into how to identify hotspots and what to look for. Just type me a message if that's what you think you would enjoy. Adding value to something. So the example of that is, okay, I want to put on an extra bedroom, or I want to subdivide and build something at the back, or I buy a block and I add value by building onto it, right? That's adding value to something, okay? Buying a discount means buying something at less than what someone else has paid for the same thing, right? Not what the agent thinks that it should be selling for, right? Or what the vendor's advertised, and I got 10 grand off that, but that's still above what the actual value of the property is. So looking at those 2 things, but then capital growth is really what's going to fast track your wealth. I know that if I buy something for 500,000, that over the next 10 years, if it goes to 800,000, that's $300,000 that I have created in my wealth bucket. Right now, can I save that amount of money? Absolutely not. Right? Can I create that through cash flow in my property portfolio? Very, very hard. We probably need 25 to 30 properties in order to do that. So it's really about looking at the cash flow and monitoring where can I get best bang for my buck now, but also for the long term. All right. So yeah, I think that, as I said, that next webinar will be around finding property and going deeper into the do's and don'ts of finding property. So Maria said, any other sources we can use other than the sold section or realestate.com to look at pricing? Good question, Maria. So there are sites like On the House and a few others that are a bit flighty, and wouldn't rely on them. RP Data is the Rolls Royce, as I've mentioned before. That's is a paid subscription, unfortunately. So it's roughly about, for the full gamut, about $200 a month, right, to look at. So yeah, it is quite expensive, but it has a lot of comparable sales for most areas around the country. Yeah, so one thing that I do look at is vacancy rates and how that's trending, because we know that if there's a shortage there, so to go back a step, if we're looking at vacancy rates, if you go onto I'll actually type it in, www.sqm, if I can move the microphone, research, how's my spelling going, .com.au. Yeah, okay. So I've just sent you guys a link. Just making sure I spelled that right. So that you can get free data on vacancy rates of any postcode around the country. So what that tells you is a certain percentage and how it's been trending over the last 5 to 10 years. If it's 4%, that's roughly 4 weeks of vacancy per year that you would expect from your investment property. If it's 1%, that's equivalent to about 1 week, right? So it tells us that, and I'd say a balanced market is probably around about 2 to 3%. Okay, if it's 4 and trending upwards, then that might be a little bit of a concern that you need to forecast for. If it's 2 and trending downwards, then that's absolutely a good thing. It means that your property is going to have very little issues with cash flow from a tenant's point of view. But then from a growth point of view, we can look at, even on realestate.com, if I tick the box that says exclude properties under offer or contract, I think it says, you can see the difference when I tick that box. So it might go from 100 properties down to 80 properties, for example, right, when I tick that box and then recheck. So that's telling me that 20% of the properties in that area are under contract or under offer at any one time. Right now, that's a pretty good percentage. You know that 1 in 5 is getting sold at any one time. If you've got 200 properties on there and it only drops to 195, then it's a pretty slow market. And that's a broad check that you can do that takes you 2 seconds. But yeah, there's a lot more that we'll go into in more detail next time. So I'm going to just open it up to the floor if anyone has anything else that they want to get off their chest. I don't think there's any other questions there. Any other topics that you would like to cover in more detail for future webinars? Nothing? No? Okay. Love your feedback on it too. So if you think, yeah, okay, this is going all right, fantastic. If you think, nah, John, I'm never dialing into you again and wasting that 50 minutes, then I'm okay with that as well. It's the Chinese next door. I've been here 2.5 years and 2 doors away is my Chinese, and that's the first time I've had it. So if nothing else, I've tried something for the first time today. So if there's nothing else, appreciate you tuning in for tonight's webinar for 2020, but encourage you guys to, drive the level of support that you need to get what you need out of 2020. Whether you've been with us for 2 months or 2 years, there's always something that you can be doing. Just because you're not buying property or preparing to buy property, it doesn't mean that we can sit on our hands in all facets of our wealth creation journey. So, guys, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you, Tara. That's great. Tune in for next time. Well, that's one that'll be joining me for Chinese. So look forward to chatting to you all guys soon. Thank you.